Lowstakes with Verse. And yeah, today we're gonna talk about small blind versus big blind freeway and general game plan plus some adjusts that we can make, as it's not the easiest position to play. And also we'll talk about when to use pot size bets, over bets, and yeah, generally when it's the best timing to use those plays. Hello. And yeah, so let's start. Just to sum up what were we talking about earlier on earlier episodes. So most important rules that we should follow to go through stakes, general mistakes that we do, not like from specific position, but in general, plus heads up small blind game plan. Later we were doing big blind versus button and big blind versus freeway. So if any of this topic you didn't see and you are curious, you can go to our Learn tab and find them by looking for a video from the author verse, and you will find it surely and easily. Okay, so small blind versus big blind. On the right there is a chart for the second point, but for the first point we have a general chart for playing versus an unknown opponent. And unless we have any info about someone, we should play as many hands as possible, as there are players who don't isolate and who fold versus c-bet when they don't hit. So we want to find such players as fast as possible. So if we have a first hand versus any given player, we should play all our hands, even the worst. Of course, we can fold some knight deuce of suited 9-3, but actually it won't be a mistake to limp also those hands, as we are actually looking for some passive players and we want to spot them as fast as possible to get as much chips from them as possible. So yeah, and when we have any info about someone and generally playing versus a rec, we can use simplified 3x strategy. It's like a simplified GTO strategy, which is not actually GTO because it has only one sizing, and this is the table, the chart on the right is how we should play it. Yellow are 3x folds, brown are 3x calls, and also the purple ones are open shoves. So this is 3x open only strategy. I really recommend it to play versus a rec, and in general pre-flop just play versus a random from our charts. And yeah, this is the main approach. Also, when we are under 20 big blinds, we should have this strategy as well, but 2.5x. So if we have 17 big blinds effective, we open 2.5x rather than 3x, and yeah, just using this chart, and this way it will be like 60% of VPIP, 65 maybe. So yeah, this is the way to go versus most of the players that we meet regularly at the tables. So readless, we want to see bet 100% of our good hands and draws, and we can bet 6. When it comes to sizing, we can bet a bit more with our best holdings and a bit less with our draws, especially weak draws, because we want to realize equity as cheap as possible. We are not betting for value, we are out of position, so we're actually bluffing, and we have a lot of cards to improve. So let's say we have a 5-4 of spades on a queen 10-7 of spades, 2 spades. So we can either check call this board, or we can bet like just 1 BB. This is it. It's enough, as we can also call a raise. So definitely we don't want to build a huge pot with our weak draws. But in general, just to get to know our opponent and see how he's reacting, we want to bet smaller with our draws and bigger with our value. And this is also important because many times when we are talking about strategy with someone from this position, we are saying that, yeah, we are checking our value because they're always betting. And this is what I said once to Cioat. It was like 1 year ago. And he said, yeah, okay, so let's filter it in Poker Tracker. And on my database, I found out that after my check, people are only betting 35 or 38%. I don't remember exactly, but it's definitely not always. And also, they're usually betting on many boards that we give up. Like we open Ace-5, so there is a 10-7-8 board, and this is the kind of board that it's getting floated most frequently. So apart from that, if you take all the dry boards or other stuff, it would be mainly like against population, like probably 30% or something like that. So that's why we want to c-bet our best hands to get value. There are some sticky opponents that, for example, have folded to our c-bet 2 times out of 11, let's say. And this is kind of hard to play against such an opponent. We should go for more delays with hands that has no equity. So let's say we mean raise 7-5 suited, and the board is King Jack 4. So we want to check and go for a delay in this kind of spot quite often, as we said, they're not floating enough, and our 70%, 75% delay works pretty sweet on those high boards that they didn't bet on the flop. So this is the first adjust to to play more delays, like play less variance heavy. The less variance heavy action you encounter, you play against the fish, it's better for you. As for the future value of this tournament, you will still be you could still have better options, better spots to gain the most GPV possible against such players. So we don't have to build huge pots and barrel too much against the random, because it's just I was saying it a lot on our previous coachings, that versus a passive fish, we are also passive, and we just steal, and when we have a hand, we try to build the pot. Fast floaty opponent, we want to be checking some of our worst stoppers to let him barrel. Yeah, so to let him bet actually. So yeah, there are some players who who are just almost always betting when we check. We can check it on the stat probe / float. So if he's probing a lot, he's probably floating a lot as well, and betting versus missed c-bet, etc. So given a passive action, there are kind of players who are just almost always aggressive. So versus them, we can easily, like, we limp jack deuce suited, and the flop is jack 5-3. This is a great board to check with our jack, as we don't need too much protection because it's kind of one of the highest pairs, and also he might start betting with a 7-8, 6-7, something that would usually fold against our bet. Yeah, definitely we can see bet 60-65%, but 50% sizing is also good with value, as it's like pretty pretty balanced, and balance, I mean here that not that we need to be balanced against randoms, but 50% bet looks like, yeah, just half pot bet, just standard, so it doesn't look very strong. So it's probably good, but there are a lot of players that doesn't look at the sizing too much, unless it's 1 BB or pot size. They don't really care. If we have 80 chips pot and we bet 52, they will often behave the same way as if we bet 42. So it's better to just bet a little bit bigger with value, but it's just, small adjustment. It's not like that you will win 5 chips more from this position after you bet 55 rather than 42. It's pretty much similar, but yeah, the idea is to get value from our opponent. Okay, on very wet boards 9-8-7, we might want to check raise with value and check call hands like, yeah, Jack 8, Queen 10, Jack 10. So or 10-9, for example. Jack 10, actually, I didn't want to give it here. I was thinking more about 10-9, as Jack 10 doesn't block his 9s as well. So we might be wanting to bet high sizing anyway on this kind of board. But in general, those kind of boards are getting floated the most. So if we have, for example, 6-5 here, it's perfect to check his 6-5, as if we bet, they usually won't raise a 9, won't raise an 8, won't raise a 10, but they will usually bet all of those hands. And after we bet 6-5, there are still some cards that we are not very keen on, like a 6, for example, like a 10, like a Jack. There are not very good cards for 6-5. And after we check such board with 6-5, we can easily take this hand to 2 streets, check raise the flop, and check raise big, and just go all in on the turn. And this works pretty good as well. So on this very wet boards with value, with hands, we will there will be a lot of hands that we will be giving up this board a lot. Like, I don't know, King 4, Ace Deuce, Ace 3, Ace 4, Ace 5, Ace Queen, even sometimes versus a high sizing, we would just check give up this hand. So so as we will check and give up decent amount, it's also good to have in some check raising range there, and the straights, the lower straights, or over pairs as well, like jacks, tens. This Jack 10 is a mistake. I wanted to give here 10-9. I wanted to give here 10-9, but Jack 10, as I said, it's better to bet and bet bigger usually. Like even pot size bets on such boards, as there will be a lot of pair plus draws. So this is just a mistake on the presentation, and it should be 10-9 here. Okay, so on low boards like 9-5-3, we can see bet with pot hands like Jack 10, 10-8, Queen, etc., etc. So the reason for that is we are talking about making our opponent uncomfortable. Right now in 2019, as it's coming to an end, people, especially that played spins a lot, Rex in general, are used to sizings 30%, 40%, 50, 55%. They're used to those sizing versus c-bet. So they know what hands are they not check raising, but raising on 9-5-3. They know what they're calling. They know they float. They know that they, for example, would just call our c-bet with 2 high cards, etc. But when we start to mix it up with pot size bets, so in general we try to find hands that has a good backdoor equity, they will start to make mistakes. They will overfold because it's not usual to bet so high, and that's exactly why we choose those hands like 10-8. 10-8 has a great backdoor equity. We can barrel on a queen, a jack, a 7, 6 give us equity as well. 10 is a top pair. We can barrel on kings, aces, etc. So we on board that has low folding equity, and we don't really want to check call, but we don't really want to check fold either. Same question that winner. Yeah, I was talking about it, that we can easily make a bet a bit higher because 50 is kind of similar to 60 to most of the players, but it's not like a rule that we have to be very strict about, that we always have to bet 60 with value. No, I was just saying that being out of position, we might want to build a pot a bit faster than being in position. So that's why this is the thing that I'm doing, for example, in my game. But 55% 50 is still fine in dry board, especially. It doesn't matter that much. Okay. So I was saying that we want to choose hand that has good backdoor equity. So you can see here that we have 2 overcards with backdoor flush draws, or 1 overcard with a backdoor straight draw, 2 overcards with a backdoor straight draw, etc., etc. So if we don't really want to check fold something and don't really want to check call something, our adjust might be versus sticky players, of course, because versus just a random guy, we can check and go for a delay if he's not betting too much. We can use pot size bets to our C bets on small blind versus big blind, and it's working pretty fine. So this would be it from small blind versus big blind. If you have any questions, surely you can ask anything on the chat and I will reply. And now let's go to pot sizes and go over bets. So the sexiest thing in poker. As a start, we need to remember that our bet has to target something. So if we bet pot size, we want to target something that can call us if we are betting with value. If we, yeah, I hope I can tell something about it. I play with overbets a lot, and pot sizes, as I play hundreds on Winamax. So there are a lot of players who are pretty sticky, and I have to find some solutions to different guys. So yeah, hopefully it will be good. Sometimes it's just better to bet 40% with the nuts on the river. For example, we have kings. There was king 6-4. Then on the turn and on the river, there are 2 cards that improves fold equity. So that's why we usually bet for bluff. With, for example, we have 7-8 here, and we bet for bluff on this runout, and it's working very good. But if we have such a good hand, like almost nuts here, we might be thinking about betting small on the river to get calls with from sixes. Fours probably will fold anyway. So on this specific runout, we might even bet like 25% or something. We can induce a raise here as well from busted straight draws or something. So it's definitely better on such a runout to bet smaller rather than betting pot. So it's not like, yeah, I'm betting pot, I'm super good player because yeah, I'm bombing the river, bombing the turn, bombing the flop, I'm so good. No, it's not like that, of course. We need to know when to use those sizings. And I try to think about spots that I'm doing it the most often, and it's working pretty fine for me whole year actually. So yeah, when do we pot over bet for value? So first thing, that villain, for example, donked more than 50% on the flop, and we called, for example, because we had a flash draw. The flash draw completed on the turn, and he suddenly checks. It means mainly that he had probably a good hand on the flop, but now he is scared of the turn. So we are on the turn, we might be like testing him a bit, betting 55%, 60%. If he like calls, sometimes they snap call, and it's a size, it's a timing tell that that they have this top pair from the flop, for example, and then we know that we can definitely easily barrel all in on the river with our flash, because he was as is on the second point as well. He made an aggressive action before, and he was trying to tell us the story that he has a good hand, and we can use it to our advantage when we hit, because we know that he was telling that he has a good hand. So our goal is to target his good hand. That's why we can bet so big on the river. Again, the same is with the second point, that we faced an aggression action Faust V-line on earlier streets. So for example, we are betting our top set on the flop, the turn pairs, and suddenly a fish like donks 70%, and then checks on the river, because the river is a bit scary. Like, I don't know, there's a king jack 10 something something, we have kings, and he has a 6. He would bet anyway if there are 2 6s, but the general idea is that he donked, for example, the turn, or check raised us on the flop and then checked on the turn because it was something scary for him. And if we had some aggressive action versus our opponent, it's the time usually to go big on the river, because we want to get value from the story that he was telling us, that he was just aggressive, you know. Yeah. The same is, for example, if they bet the flop, barrel the turn big, 70% or 80%, we are on the big blind. We call again because we have pair plus draw, for example, and our draw completed on the river, or our pair like paired, so we have trips now. And especially if we have these trips and the draw blanked, it's perfect to just, you know, go over battle in with a donk, because they usually have a good hand, like a top pair, over pair, or whatever, and they are very unlikely to fold it. Definitely there are guys as well, not readless, that likes to bluff catch. We all have such opponents that has fold versus third barrel, I don't know, 2 out of 10, for example. So it means that they fold more on the turn. Can we play the heads up small blind strategy with overpair straights? Yes. Yeah, definitely. Like the thing from the heads up small blind on if in Crash Fest, the reason why I think I have it even in a 4th point. So I will talk about it in a minute. I will just finish this bluff catch. So yeah, we need to polarize our sizings when we have someone who loves to call. So let's say we have this ace-10. Ace-10 is just pretty easy example, but let's say we have ace-4. The main thing we are targeting anyway is a jack. The flop was ace-jack-9. It was a limp pot. We see bet they call. So they have a jack, a 9, a gut shot, or a king most of the time. And then there are two cards that doesn't change fold equity too much, and we bet again on the turn. They call, and the river is a blank as well, so we want to go all in because they might know that we free barrel on ace high boards, and they will get stick with jack or a 9. I'm sticky as well there with a jack for sure. So it's great to use big sizing with an ace in such spots. Crash Fest tells us as well to bet pot with overpair straights on wet boards. This is just because we block nothing. So if it's like 10-8-7 and we have preferably 9-6, as we wouldn't block jack as well, and they can have jack 8 or or a 10 or whatever, because we don't block it. We can pot size it. The same goes to queens or kings there, as they would probably never fold a 9 and open-ended, because they just don't do that. They're not thinking about our range enough, but they're thinking about their hand that they can improve to a straight. Being in a big blind position, though, if someone suddenly bets pot on a 10, 8, 7, and you have 9, 4, and you're out of position, you can even fold this 9, 4 versus a pot size, because if you hit, you won't get your money anyway, probably, because you will be like face up on a straight draw. And if you don't hit, you will just lose on the red line, because if they pot size the flop on such a wet board, they usually, like 80% of the time, or 90 even, they will bet on the turn. So yeah, this is important to remember as well. And also props or value, like top pairs, especially from guys who likes to check second, third pairs, and they're never folding to props. We are sitting on, I don't know, Jack 7, and the flop is Jack 8 deuce, the turn is a 4, and we are just potting it with our top pair, and that's it. So now, more interesting part, when to pot for bluff or denying equity. Over cards out of position. So for example, we over cards and of course backdoor draws out of position. So we opened king 10 and the flop is Jack 8 deuce. So do we want to check call it? Not really. Do we want to bet it once and then give up? Yeah, kind of, we can do it. But if we bet too small on this board, there are still overcards, a lot of gut shots, like not that much, but still there are 7-9s, 10-7s, queen 10s, etc., etc., etc. So they won't fold too much anyway, and they can float us with ace-5, ace-4, any aces, actually any kings, and they can win the pot against us later if we start to be passive. So this is not a bad board to pot bet. We have a king that we can borrow. We have an ace. We have a queen. And 9 is pretty interesting card. Depending on SPR, we could either barrel or try to control the pot, or bet small, or just check call. So it gives us options. A 7 also gives us a gut shot, and we still have one overcard. So this is a kind of good board to just spot it, as it's perfect example of hands that we don't really want to check fold and don't really want to check call. And I think that in my poker tracker there will be some hands that I played this way. So I will show you that on the examples. We can also bet bottom pair on a dry structure from the bottom. This might not be very intuitive, but if you think about it, those boards get check raised so often with hands like 7-5, 5-4, all the gut shots actually. I'm also check raising 6 and 3 sometimes here, because people are c-betting 80%, so they have much more air than value. So I'm just check raising for value second and third pair very often. So if we decide to pot bet on the flop, the pot is 80, for example, and we bet 80 on this ace-3. We have two free cards actually, because we have turn and river, because we usually check the turn. Our third pair is pretty hidden. If we hit it, if they call on the flop, they're pretty strong probably. So they have either some combo draw or a straight draw with a backdoor, or a jack, or king 6, for example. So this would be nice to get value if we improve our hand. And we just deny equity from them floating us with random hands. I might be calling king queen on a jack 6-3 against a small c-bet. Against 1 BB, I might be calling even 8-7 or whatever, and try to figure out on the turn and river what to do. And some racks do that as well. So after a pot size, there are not much room left to be creative for the big blind on sub spot. It doesn't have to be pot size actually, but it can be, for example, 65 into the pot of 80. It's working pretty good. We have very low pair. We don't really want to check it. And with this high kicker, we can just bet big, and yeah, it's working pretty fine as well. So turn barrel with gutshot versus sticky villain on the flop. So let's say our c bet was pretty standard. We bet like 40% or 50 or whatever, and the turn improves us to a gutshot. It's an overcard. As in this example, we see bet 9-5-3 with 10-7, and the turn is a jack. And our guy folds versus c-bet 30%. There are some guys like that. People are getting more and more sticky these days. So, yeah, it's a perfect turn to just pot it. If they fold 30%, if it would be a big sample. So on 9-5-3, they still call like king highs. They still call some gutshot with undercard for sure, like 8-7, 8-6, all these open-enders that are here. Ace highs for sure. Sometimes they might even call like jack 10 or something. So yeah, if they fall so small on the flop, we don't really have to be worried that much, because it means that they're on a so wide range on the turn that it gives our second barrel even bigger fold equity, because they're so wide with their range. So yeah, turn barrel against a sticky villain on the flop. It's a great example to pot with bluff. Props with draws. Yeah, we have a combo draws. They didn't see, but we're barreling the river white after second barrel pot. It's almost impossible to answer this question readless. Versus a fish, I wouldn't, because I just don't want to build a very variance heavy pot against him. But there are some cards that we just have to, like a queen, a king, an ace. We just have to bet then. If there's a 3 or a 4 or 5, a 6 on the river, I might be just giving up the river. But yeah, it depends on what card comes and if their opponents are hard or not. If they're pretty hard, I don't mind to just barrel and bluff it off, because I won't earn against them too much anyway. So I'm just hunting for fishes mostly in my games. But against the fish, if I have still a playable stack like 13 big blinds or 15 big blinds left, I would be leaning more towards giving it up. Yeah, props with draws to delay on. Yeah, we can easily delay, but those guys usually have high probes, so we also need to raise them on many turns. I was talking about raising probes on one of the previous coachings, heads of small blind game plan. But yeah, we definitely can choose different lines. But I don't see that we have to give up on many turns, because we don't give up on any card that is 7 or higher. So it's a lot of cards. So I don't see that we have to give up on many cards. Plus, some cards like 4, a 6 will give us additional equity. Like a 6 gives us a double gut shot. 4 gives us a gut shot, and we still have overcard. We can check to realize equity, and bet, check, bet. We have so many options. So I don't see this board as a board that we have to give up many turns on. I think that by betting, we have our options are there. We have even more options if we bet on turns and rivers. So yeah, props with draws. Yeah, with gut shot plus fresh draw, it's just a standard, to probe big on the turn. yeah, this is just about combo draws, some good draws, draws plus overpair, etc., etc. And sometimes probes with as well, especially on the card like 8-7 on Jack 5-3, and oh, what happened? Okay, and the 3 comes on the river on the turn. It's a third pair, so he should have some of those cards in his check backing range, but still he will have so much ace highs, etc., that would like to call our probe, but versus a pot size, it's pretty hard to call. We have a spade, let's say, in our hand, so we can barrel again on the spade. We can barrel again on the 6 because we block this 7-6. We can bet small on 8 or 7 for value from a 5, from an ace high, etc. So there's still a lot of cards that we could barrel, but our main goal is to fold him out here and now on the turn. And that's why with this no equity hand, we want to sometimes, because versus some guys, the best option will be just to give up this spot, but in many spots we could just pot size it on the turn and get him to fold. So that would be it for now about pot sizes and overbets. I think there's a lot of information here to note it, and you will have access to this coaching anyway, so you can check it later. But just mix it up, mix some plays to your game from time to time, because the wider opportunities you have to do some stuff on turns, rivers, flop, etc., check raises, everything. So you are able to do many things. Your potential realizes more because you are thinking logically, etc., etc. Your opponents don't know what's going on, and you're just making them uncomfortable. But because just betting 40% of the flop always, I can make a note. He is betting 40% with bluff. He is betting 70% with value, and he is just like an open book. And a lot of us still does like playing automatically. We are just being very easy opponents for our opponents. For our opponents. So I would close this presentation and open Poker Tracker. If you have any hands, small blind versus big blind, that you want me to check it out, you can do it on strategy channel, strategy general here. So if you post it, let me know on the chat and I will look at it. And for now, I will just open my hand that I was playing this morning, actually, because I woke up at like 7 something and played in the morning. So here nothing. If you have any questions as well, try to let me know. Okay, and we have first like pretty weird spot. We have king high. We are good quite often, and we don't really want to fold. His floats are not very big, so I could definitely decide to go for a delay. His folds versus c-bets though are pretty small, and he is pretty aggressive overall. I think he's a wreck, but I have hidden names. So I think that betting here big is an option. I think going for a delay is an option as well, but of course I would prefer to have a hand like king 9, king 10 here to bet big, but still I can like represent something on queens, on 10s, and go for 3 barrels. And I think I decided to go big here. Actually I got a fold because it's pretty dry. It's hard for him to raise it, and I didn't really want to check fold it, but as I see his stats, I could decide to check with this particular hand, but I don't mind betting big as well. But still, I think that against this particular guy, checking might be a little bit better. Okay, checking. For example, Jack 7-3. I think there might be some, as on Jack 7-3 there are more gut shots, so our fold equity might be a bit lower. But my main goal is to pick up this backdoor equity myself and the barrel turns and reverse, rather than, you know, that's why this hand is not very good to do it. And the more I look at it, I think that checking here is a bit better. But yeah, the general rule is to pick up your backdoor equity on turns and rivers and just barrel, because of course on Jack 7-3 there are more gut shots, and the fold equity is obviously lower, but still the idea of it is a bit different. Okay, we check, we call, and here we have a weird spot. What are you guys doing here? It's pretty close, actually. I think that jamming here has some merits. Yeah, I was check calling flop here. Yeah, I can see, but I can check call. But with a backdoor flush draw and overcard, plus I have already a pair, I think check calling flop is the best option. And on the turn, there are some merits to jam. We have a pair overcard and a flash draw, so we are doing quite okay even versus a 9. But he still has 10s, 10-8s, 10-7s, 8-7s, some 7-5 kind of hands. So definitely jamming is a nice option here. I think I called in this spot. Calling makes a lot of sense too. But yeah, if we just bust our draw or don't improve to a 2-pair or trips, it will be pretty hard to do anything with this hand, and we let him barrel with his draws. And here it's very interesting. We check call twice. We can have those ace axes of clubs. We can have 2 pairs with an ace, like ace deuce, ace 6, ace 3 from time to time as well. But is there any reason to change our hand into a bluff? What a 9 fold? I think a 9 won't fold. Like, the pot is so the odds he will get are so good, and his one showdown after call is 3 out of 9 so far. So I don't think that the 9 would fold. But check calling is an option actually, versus, you know, his third barrel. Yeah, he has a lot of those kind of hands: 8-7, 10-7, 8-10, and some even random overcards if he is a wreck and he, you know, has this second barrel pretty high. So yeah, it's an option to just check call this hand. I remember just in game I changed this deuce into a bluff, but I think it's a mistake because he won't call me. He won't fold a 9, and this is mainly what this play should do. Should fold his hands that were value, like medium value on the turn. So yeah, I think 6 would fold, but a 6 probably wouldn't bet a pot on the turn. So I think we are in the situation when we either check call the river or check fold, and we would have to check his stats to see what's the best option there. Looking that his floats on the flop are not very big, it means that he rarely does it with random cards. Like, he's probably not betting the flop with queen 10, for example. But so he's actually sitting on a 9 for 5 or 5-7, 5-8, 8-7, 10-7, 10-8. So there are a lot of bluffs there. So that's why we would get like 27% odds if he bets. So that's why I think that check calling here makes it's very reasonable, and I would probably check call now. And I think that yeah, donk jamming here is just an overplay. So yeah, 2 hands and 2 mistakes, you see. All right, definitely betting small. That's a weird card. We are blocking it straight. We have a flash. We wouldn't probably bet an ace, but he's not probably betting a 5 or 3 either, and he could be calling us white enough still with one hard hands. So I think that maybe still barreling, but barreling small, like 28 chips or 32 or something like that is a good option. I decided to check. If I had the queen 6 of hearts, I think that this check would be, or queen 8 would be better because I wouldn't block his gutshots to a 6. I think it would be better because he could bet with 6 or 4. But with this queen 4, I think that that bet is probably a bit better, as my main target would be 1 hard hands, 2 pairs, deuce 3, deuce 5, 5-3, and fours obviously, and yeah, maybe a 6 from time to time versus a small sizing. So I would bet now, small, but still bet, but without a 4 of hearts, I would probably check. And here, given this sizing, it looks like he's buying himself a river. So I think that check raising him really small is the best option. Like, I don't know, check raising 48 or 52. He will have hard time to fold anything versus this check raise, as it looks really, really weird. So yeah, I think the check raising here, after I decided to check, is a bit better. And yeah, this is exactly what happened actually. And I just missed some value, definitely. I missed some value on the turn, either by betting or check raising versus this super tiny sizing. So yeah, this was another misplay. Okay. Okay, that's a good board as well to raise it up a bit, to bet big, for 2 reasons. First is that we could easily jam on the turn if we bet big now, because our SPR would be good. Second, we don't block top pair, and we don't block any gut shots. There are still some pair plus draws, and this board could go very quickly into the board that we don't really like. If a jack or a 10 comes, a queen would be probably a card that we won't get any value on anyway, because there would be 2 queens left, so he would have this value, and we block 8 and 9. So yeah, the best option is to bet big here and now, and yeah, that's what I decided to do, and I like it. Okay, versus complete random, we have a draw. I don't care. Just a fold. I don't want to jam, for example, here, such hand, because it's, again, the variance is increasing hugely, and they won't be free betting me light for sure here, and our hand is mediocre, so I could either limp on or min raise it. There's not much difference, but I don't care about min raise folding here, as I won't get exploited here for sure. I have all my top range in min raise, so yeah, that's it. Okay, this is pretty similar stuff, and yeah, again I folded, I think. Yeah. Okay. This is interesting. His aggression frequency is 17. So far, of course, there were only 12 hands, but when he had an option to aggressive after some other guy passive action, didn't do it. So definitely up to bet. And I like sizing, as I still want him to call with some gut shots, maybe some random floats with a queen, but this guy probably won't do it anyway. But still, betting too big here would be probably a mistake, as this kind of player versus a big sizing might even fold a 4. So yeah, this is for an example of a value hand that I don't want to increase sizing with, because of the opponent I'm facing. As I was saying earlier, that we can increase our sizing with value a bit, but this is a kind of opponent I don't want to do it, because he is folding just too much and he's just too passive. Okay, a draw again versus a random. And yeah, what are you doing here? Anyone else? Yeah, exactly like Endless Hope started to Y100. He has a lot of jacks, and if we bet, there are still so much draws and so many draws and so many two pairs that we are completely like don't know where are we in the pot. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Bet small for equity. It's the best way. 31 might be too big, especially versus this guy who is not aggressive at all. So he might be even just calling a jack here because he, don't want to scare us off or something. So I decided just to go with 1 BB, and this is pretty fine. I bricked. I invested in the pot 3 big blinds, and I saw the river with a flash draw from the flop with a 6 high. That's all I wanted, and of course I give up here, and thank you. And yeah, he decided to give up with his random hand as well. So that's exactly why maybe later I was just raising this king 7 and queen 9 and folding to a race, because it was because I saw the showdown. I think this is the same guy but earlier. So I just don't want to build any variance against such player, because now we split and he should bet always there. Okay, standard. On the turn, I don't like it, to be honest. At least I would like to have a king there to bet. No, I don't really like it. I mean, we are out of position versus a guy who is very passive. So we don't have to, invent the wheel all over again, but just be solid. I was talking about it so many times on previous coachings that we need to be super solid and super passive as well versus passive guys, because we will steal against them so much. And when the pot is big, we will usually have a big hand anyway. So that's how we just crush those passive fish. And by betting here with a draw, to trying to find some folds from an 8, 9, etc., is just of course it has some merit. Just they could fold, etc., but it's just not worth the price. And we still have 450 chips, and we will play against him so many more hands. And after we bet and he calls, we suddenly have 390, and yeah, and it's getting worse for our future value from this tournament. This is standard C bet. Okay. Yep. Just checking. I don't mind to check as well. Showdown plus draw. Definitely a call. And here versus the second barrel, I would probably just fold. He's also a random, and this guy is also a random because I've got nine hands against him. So I would just fold if he bet one more time, but he decided not to. And yeah, the thing is that if there, what kind of see bet 25%? I see bet when I have a draw and I want to realize equity for 25% of the pot. So that's when I'm betting really small. Usually like this. On those dry boards, I usually bet a little bit bigger. Sometimes spot, sometimes 40%, 50%. So yeah, and here there's an interesting thing about this river that he didn't bet. If he has a draw, yeah, a jack would be his draw. Fish has a tendency to give up rivers if they had a draw and they didn't hit and didn't complete on the river. So they have this tendency to do that like very, very often, and we could find, the reason to call here versus his bet because we don't block diamonds, etc., etc. But still, we are against two fish, and they just don't tend to bluff enough rivers. And I think that if he bet again 50%, like there would be so often it would be a queen. And if not, I would probably find out in different spot where I would have a better hand, and then I make a note, and later I can call him here on the river. So this is again about being solid. Okay, perfect board. Yeah, we can block bet small. I like it. I like the idea. Yeah, calling here and betting here like 55, 60. I love it. I mean, maybe not love it, or love it. I'm not sure. Maybe I love it. Maybe I just like it. But it's very good. We have a good kicker to a 10, a 9, a 10, won't raise in his shoes mostly because they rarely change their hands into bluffs, and we give him the price to for a queen, and definitely block betting here is an option. And this is the board that gets raised the most. 8 high boards are getting raised like 30% of the time. I think I was checking on my database over 10,000 tournaments. So definitely this is the spot to go for a delay. We were talking about hands that doesn't have too much equity, and we maybe would like to go for a delay more. I don't know if he had some fold versus c-bets yet, but no, not yet. But still, it's a good spot to just delay, and yeah, that's what I actually did, and it kind of worked. Versus a main click, of course, we are completing, and nothing to do here. Oh, here I can bet 25% as well. I mean, I don't see many floats, and if there are some, there are usually king highs that are worse than mine, so I don't mind betting here very small. And if I get a call from a random, again, I'm just playing it safe with 7-6. Yeah, I bet. One moment. Oh, not here. Where is it? Okay, it's here. Yeah, I bet 75%, just standard sizing for a delay. Where were we? With king queen, I think. Where's this king queen? I'm sorry. Yeah, it's here. Yeah. Okay, I understand. Yeah, I would bet 30, I think. Yeah, I would do that. I think so. And here, I don't mind. I'll just give up, even though it's an ace high. He still can have ace highs, aces in his range. I don't have to win the spot. Okay, here I'm definitely limp c betting and nothing to do. Yeah, here it's a very wet board again, and I prefer to probably just check folding the flop. And here I could decide to bet to get value from some of his draws or weaker pair plus draws, or just weaker pairs. But I decided to check. I called, and there's a 9 here. He checked the flop. There are some missed hands here, but I think that he still has 6-7s, jack 10s, 9s for sure, as he checked the flop and bet big the turn. He might have some queens. Of course, he might have missed flash draws. But yeah, this card also hits me quite well, this 9, and he still decides to bet 3/4. So it's not very polarizing sizing as well on high stakes. Like polarizing would be more 240. This is like very value-y in my opinion. So I decided to fold, but you could argue that it might be a call because of the hands I was talking about that could be bluffing here. But still, I don't mind just trying to be solid here. Okay, yeah, just a standard c-bet on a dry board. C-bet. Okay, here we have a double gut shot ace high board. Definitely barreling. Okay. Again, this is an interesting spot where the board could get worse on the turn. I think that there are still so much draws here, and to one bet they're never folding a 7 or a 5, that we can increase our sizing a bit, but like 90. And yeah, by betting 90, we will have SPR 1.0 something. So maybe betting 100 is a bit better here. But yeah, I'm leaning towards higher sizing here. Okay, 90 it was. It's fine. Yeah, with a second pair under than 8, as we have a rule on heads of small blind, I don't mind to do it here as well, just to deny some equity from him. We still have some backdoors that we can check call the turn with on a 4, a 3, an 8, etc., etc. On a 6, of course, we can barrel. So yeah, definitely here with a third pair, just getting slow. And now he's polarizing himself to having a jack. From time to time, I expect them to raise a jack on the flop. I block some of his draws with a 6, but there are still like so many 10-9s, 8-9s, 8-6, 6-4, 8-4, like so many gut shots here that he's wrapping just only jack X. If he would be able to do that with king 7, then it would be like more of a fold maybe. But if he is doing it only with a jack, and I suppose most guys would, then I'm definitely calling, especially that my line looked like c-bet give up. That's how my line looked like. And yeah, that's why I called, and he had some random hand. I think we can have one more hand, and we will get to some questions and finish for the day. Again, this is the spot where we couldn't really barrel too much, and we don't have a lot of equity, so I'm just going for a delay. And perfect card for a delay, we delay. And yep, maybe some more. Okay, and finally we found some different spot that I was talking earlier with checking top pairs. So it will be mainly against players who float a lot and who are pretty aggressive. I'm not sure if he is one of those guys. The only thing is that he is playing very wide. But I think that when we don't have 3 barrels of value, we can, sometimes I don't think that I know that we can sometimes check the stopper, but I'm not sure about this guy and about this play actually. And now I'm just in a check calling mode, and yeah. So that would be it. I think that my laptop is dying. A moment. Okay, it's low. It's battery low now. So that would be it for today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me here or on private message later. If you have any feedback for this coaching, please don't hesitate to write it on feedback as well. It helps me a lot to improve the quality of my coachings. I always try to have it structured well with two halves, first theory, then practice. So I hope you guys liked it, and yeah, I can. You mean this? Next. Okay, this. Okay. So thank you guys very much for attending, and see you next time. Thank you. I really appreciate such words. Okay, next time it's how Baba then. Thank you guys, and good luck at the table.